In old school, we always want the fastest XP possible, and any loss in XP is worse than a Wednesday morning. So these are all of the fastest ways to train every skill in old school, plus the next best methods if the fastest ones cost billions of GP or are incredibly click intense. So starting out with agility, and to access this you're going to need to have completed the Sins of the Father quest and head over to the northeast of Darkmere. Unlike other agility methods, the Hallowed Sepulchre requires concentration and also takes a while to learn. There are though some great guides now that can show you exactly what square to stand in, and with Runelight you can simply copy all of their tile markers and dump them straight into your Runelight. This will get you just short of 100,000 XP per hour, that is when you can complete floor 5, and if you don't loot anything, or 85,800 XP if you are looting. As a comparison, compare that to other agility courses where the best methods will get you 70,000 XP per hour. If you have endless money and 99 construction, you can in theory get 14 million XP per hour training construction by simply building demonic thrones. Each one of these gives you a massive 25,000 XP, but it uses 25 magic stones costing over 24 million GP. So whilst the XP is truly amazing here, very few people could afford a method that costs 14 billion GP per hour. A good alternative though is gnome benches, requiring 77 construction, still fairly expensive but a lot more realistic. So to set this up, I recommend using the plugin Custom Menu Swaps, and under Custom Swaps, typing this part into it. What this does is if you've ever watched a guide on this method, they normally click a tiny little area at the end of the benches at a specific angle to avoid clicking on the bench instead of the butler and vice versa. And this is because you can come from any direction whatsoever and stand in various places and they get in the way of each other. So what this does instead is it always ensures it prioritizes targeting the butler over the bench when you left click and they're both next to each other. The bench is quite large and you'll always be able to click some parts of it no matter what to build, whereas without doing this sometimes the bench completely covers the butler. In this method you can make 2 benches here very quickly holding down the number 2 key, and then you can hold down the 1 key and click on both benches to remove them in one tick, and then on the butler to get you some more supplies. That method can get you over 1 million XP per hour, but only if you tick perfect. But even when you're learning and you're making a ton of mistakes, you still end up getting over 800,000 XP per hour. Training this way or any other way that uses mahogany planks, since you always get the same XP for them, will cost a cool 220 million GP to get yourself all the way up to level 99. The fastest cooking method in old school RuneScape is currently one-ticking Karamband, and the best place to do that is in the Myths Guild, which does require completion of Dragon Slayer 2. The reason this is the best place is it's a range and it's also on the same tile as the bank chest. And to do this method efficiently, the trick really is just timing. To make it easier to do, if you switch to one of the resizable modes, holding down the Alt key will allow you to move your inventory to anywhere you want on the screen. This allows you to put it right next to the range, so you don't have to move your mouse as far. Once you're happy where that is and you're set, hold down the number 1 key or the spacebar, click on the Karamband and then click on the range. For the timing, what you want to do is click on the range just after you get a new XP drop. You then have 1 tick or 0.6 seconds to click on another raw Karamband and then back on the range as you see the next XP drop. I see a lot of people trying these methods and they try and move the mouse as quickly as possible and click as many times as they can, and all that does is means you're missing some ticks and you won't get as much XP. This has the exact same XP as the last method and you can get almost 1 million XP per hour, but again, realistically with mistakes, you probably get around 800,000. It is not often that a training method that trains 2 skills at once gives a lot of XP in either of those skills enough to make it the best method, but Enhanced Crystal Keys does exactly that. One inventory of these alone gives you 30,500 XP in both, but there are some serious downsides to this method that means unless you're dropping the keys, it isn't the fastest. So you do get a massive 2.2 million XP per hour in both skills doing this method when you're enhancing the keys. However, opening the chest takes far longer than creating the keys does. You can open around 10 chests on average before you fill up your inventory, and including banking, that takes around 45 seconds. So whilst creating 27 keys takes under 20 seconds, using those 27 takes you about 2 minutes on average, lowering the XP per hour to around 300,000 XP. Now, since dropping the keys means a loss of around 250,000 GP each one, using the cheapest method available to get shards, doing that to get from level 80 to level 99 in both skills will cost a staggering 5.5 billion GP. So an alternative method is at 84 crafting, you can simply make black d'hide bodies, the next best method, and this will get you 426,000 XP per hour, and to get from level 84 to 99 will cost you a more reasonable 200 million GP. In farming, the fastest XP that you can get is planting trees, which does give you a ton of XP for checking them once they've grown. The problem, of course, is that they take a very long time to grow, so you can only do this once or twice per day. A way to train consistently and get a lot of XP is to plant tall box hedges in your player-owned house. Like a lot of the best methods though, you are going to have to pay a lot for these. They are 100,000 GP each if you were to buy them straight from a gardener, but they cost 109,000 GP on the GE, and they give 316 farming and 316 construction XP for everyone that you plant. A couple of tips to speed this method up. First of all, you want to hold down the shift key and right click on the hedge before it has anything planted in it. Select the swap left click option into build instead. Now the default option when you left click will be to plant a new hedge. In the same way, once you've planted a hedge, you now want to do the same thing and change the left click to remove. With that set up, you can now left click and select 7, left click and select 1, and simply repeat that pattern. This method gets you around 275,000 XP per hour in both farming and construction, but will cost you 95 million GP per hour too. There is really nothing complicated about firemaking, and once you have level 90 you can burn redwood logs for the best XP in the game. A good place to do this is the GE, where you can start a line of fires on one side of it and then finish on the other side without any obstacles in the way. Redwoods can get you as much as 520,000 XP per hour and are one of the cheapest methods in this guide, with 90 to 99 firemaking costing you under 12 million GP. We often think of tick manipulation methods as very sweaty, click-intense methods that make your hand ache after a very short period, because that's normally the case, but fishing is one of the few exceptions. All you need is some runes for a magic spell that doesn't do any damage, such as weaken, confuse, and then head over to the bank in Port Piscarilius with a harpoon, short bow equipped without any arrows, and runes for the spell that you're going to be using. To the west of the bank is a cage fishing spot, and if you press shift and right click on it, you can then change the default left click option to harpoon instead of cage. By the fishing spot there are 2 rats nearby, and you want to attack them using a spell that won't do any damage to them, just to lure them over to the fishing spot. Now you want to set this up so one rat attacks you and then the other one attacks you 2 ticks later. That way you're going to be attacked by one of them every 2 ticks. But it's quite likely they're going to start out of sync, so there are a number of ways that you can change when they attack. You can use a Dragon Spear spec, which will stun one without killing it. Moving one tile will usually get one stuck diagonally, and then you can move back when you want it to attack you, or you can step under one just before they attack you. Once you have this set up so they're alternating attacks just like this, you can now 2-tick Swordfish by clicking on the pool every time your character goes to turn around like so. To make it even easier, you can even set up left click drop on the fish in your inventory, so you click on the pool and then your inventory to drop any fish that you've caught. This method is much easier than it first sounds, and it gets you up to 132,000 XP per hour in what is notoriously a very slow skill. The best XP for fletching is creating dragon darts at level 95, or the best darts that you can fletch. But with this, I want to show you a method that's a little bit easier than what I see most players doing. I see people clicking once on the feathers, once on the darts, then back to the feathers and so on. However, after your first click, you can then click on every item twice. The first click will create some darts, and then the next click will select that item to be used on something else. You then move back to the first item, and again, the first click will create some darts, and the second click will select the items to use on something else. And this can be done with any item that you combine together, such as crystal keys, making saplings, and so on. But it's especially useful here to save you burning out so quickly when doing it for a long time, as halving the amount of mouse movements you need does make a big difference. The XP you're going to get really depends on the speed that you can do this for, and some people claim that they can get as much as 4 million XP per hour, but at a steady pace that's realistic for most players, you can expect somewhere between 2 and 3 million XP. The cost for these isn't too bad either, with every million XP that you gain costing you just over 12 million GP. There are a few potions in Herblore that you can 1-tick, but it's very difficult not to make any mistakes because of how the method works. By holding down the spacebar and then using the secondary ingredient on the relevant potion to make either staminas, anti-venoms, serum 207s or extended anti-fires, you can make these potions in just 1 tick. Extended super anti-fires give the highest XP at 160 each potion currently, but require 98 Herblore. Anti-Venom at 87 is 120 XP, and Stamina's at level 77 give 102. The highest of those potions, Extended Anti-Fires, without any mistakes can get you over 800,000 XP per hour, and the lowest, Stamina's, can get you 520,000 XP. But the icons in your inventory are fairly small, and moving in different directions at different distances naturally leads to a lot of mistakes. Personally, I prefer to do 2 different potions if I'm going to do this method, and have the top half of my inventory for one of them, like so, and the bottom half for the other. That way there's less movement, you make less mistakes, and it largely makes up for getting less XP on one of the potions. Extended Super Anti-Fires are really cheap right now, with 1 million XP costing you just 900,000 GP. At 80 Hunter, you will be able to place 6 traps in the wilderness, where 3 ticking black chins becomes the fastest XP in the game, that you can do for long periods. Of course, the XP that you're going to get here is dependent on how many times you get interrupted by PKs, and I recommend at least a budget-made setup like this to be able to freeze log out if you do see a PKer. I see so many players without gear here, but the difference between surviving PvP encounters and ended up in Lumbridge every 10 minutes is huge for the sake of risking another 300,000 GP in gear, which when you think about it is only the same price as 75 chins. You're also going to need an item that can be used to tick manipulate, like a knife and some logs, or like I've got some swamp tar and a guam. It's really simple to do, and anytime that you're resetting a trap, all you do is use your tick manipulation items on each other as soon as you pick up the trap, and it will set the trap back up instantly in the next tick. Now, it's nearly impossible to give the exact XP per hour for this because of the PK element, but with an ult protecting you and also killing any straight chin chompers, you can get up to 275,000 XP per hour. But even without that, most players will get over 200,000 XP, especially if you're a high combat level, because most PKs are here just farming the low level bots. A fastest magic training method is currently 1 tick enchanting Onyx bolts once you have 87 magic to do it. It's also a great way to learn the timing of 1 ticking, as it's probably the easiest 1 tick method that I can think of. For this, you just hold down the spacebar and time each click just as you get a new XP drop, and it really doesn't take long at all before you get the timing down, and it becomes so repetitive you don't even need to look at the XP drops to time it anymore. And then you can do it watching your favourite YouTuber, whoever that is. Could be anyone at all, just saying. Without any mistakes, you can get as much as 582,000 XP per hour at a cost of 59 times more XP than you get, which works out to 34.3 million GP per hour. Melee is usually quite slow to train, but there are a few unusual ways to train it quite quickly, but they do require help from other players. The special attack of the Bulwark hits 10 things within 5 tiles, but it does also use 50% of your special attack each time. However, on the Lunar Spellbook, you can have a friend or a paid accomplice transfer all of their special attack energy over to you, and with enough people doing this, you can continue to use your special attack over and over again with huge XP drops. Now, whilst technically the fastest place to train would be Maniacal Monkeys, the amount of players needed to constantly top up your special attack energy here will probably take at least 10, as it takes a long time to get into this part of the cave, and every time someone transfers the special attack energy over to you, they need to teleport over to their house and recharge it in the pool, and then come back to you. There are different discords that offer this service, and they charge normally between 5 and 10 million GP per hour, so you could be paying anywhere from 50 to 100 million GP for just 1 hour of this. A more practical place and only a little bit less XP per hour is Greater Necrals in the Catacombs of Korend, because here you only need around 5 to 6 players spec transferred over to you because it's much closer. And finally, if you want to do the cheapest way possible, you could also go to Temple Spiders in the Forthos Dungeon, which is very close to a teleport spot and would only require about 4 players helping, but even that is still 20 to 40 million GP per hour. If all that's too much for you, the next best method after that is Darax in the Nightmare Zone, lowering your health to 1 HP and then using absorption potions, which essentially act as a shield and stop you from dying. If you want the best mining XP, you're going to have to 3-tick Grana in the desert, so you want to bring either a Desert Amulet 4 or a Circlet of Water to avoid the desert heat. This method is very click intense and definitely not for everyone. As usual with any tick manipulation methods, you're going to want some swamp tar, a guam and a pestle and mortar or something similar that can be used. And to get into cycle, to start the timer of this, you click on one of the rocks and wait until your pickaxe is just about to hit the rock itself, and use the swamp tar on the guam leaf at that point and then click on the next rock. Then as your character finishes turning towards the next rock, use the guam and the swamp tar again and you're now in a 3-tick cycle. Whilst this is a very sweaty method, you typically get over 50% more XP than other mining methods where you have to pay a lot of attention, like the blast furnace and iron ore, and double the XP of more relaxed methods like the mother lode mine. In prayer, you can get up to 1.34 million XP per hour, one tick offering superior dragon bones at a gilded altar, and the best place to do this is on World 330 in Remington. First though, it's very busy here, so I recommend using Entity Hider to hide other players so you can just see what you're doing a lot more easily. There's also a method that makes this a lot easier, and to do that you want to change the layout to resizable modern layout, then go into the settings, then controls, and scroll down until you see the option side panels can be closed by hotkeys and then tick this here. What that does is anytime you press the key that would normally open your inventory, pressing it again once it's open will then close it. The point of this is if you put your inventory over the altar like so, and you move your mouse over the bottom right bone, you can then click your left mouse button once to select the bone, then your F key to close your inventory, left mouse to use the bone on the altar, and then F key to open your inventory and repeat the process. Instead of moving your mouse left and right all the time between each bone, you're literally just clicking your mouse, clicking a key, clicking your mouse, clicking a key, and so on. Once you've finished an inventory, all you do is you go outside, unnote your bones with files, and repeat the process. Or for more XP, you can even pay bone runners in the Discord Find Runners, and I'll put a link in the description for that. And using a runner to bring you the bones will increase your XP up to 2.1 million per hour. Prayer is a pretty expensive skill though, and 70 to 99 using superior dragon bones is currently 535 million GP. No prizes for guessing what's the best ranging method, and that is of course black chinning maniacal monkeys, after completing or partially completing at least Monkey Madness 2. The best method is to use auto retaliate in one of the corners like so, and after each attack walk around the corner. This will automatically stack them up for you, so you're guaranteed to always be hitting 12 targets, which is the maximum amount. With a high range level, potions and rigor, you can get up to 1 million XP per hour. Crafting lava runes at the fire altar using runners will get you the fastest XP in runecrafting, and this only requires level 23. However, for maximum efficiency, you also want 82 magic in order to use the lunar spell Magic Imbue, and this stops you from needing to use a talisman when you combine runes. Wearing a binding necklace with that spell active and using earth runes on the altar will create lava runes 100% of the time. You could do this method on your own and it does get you 110,000 XP per hour, but with as much as 4 runners trading you over the essence, this can increase it to as much as 280,000. To hire some helpers, you can use the Find Runners Discord, and these can cost anywhere between 4.5 and 8 million GP per hour, depending on the experience of the runner. A different type of method that you can do solo is to create Eternal Boots, with each one giving you 200 Magic XP and 200 Runecrafting XP too. This method can get you 240,000 XP in both skills per hour, and it is possible to even make a profit depending on when you buy them. But this is the current price today where you do make a profit, but just last week the same method would have lost you about 80,000 GP once you include the tax. So patience on this one really is key. You're also going to need a lot of money to be able to buy a decent amount to be able to do this for a long period. Plus the buy limit for the Eternal Crystal is only 15 per 4 hours. The quickest way to train up your Slayer is to use Duradel, as he gives the highest amount of creatures to kill each task without putting restrictions on you where you can only kill them in certain areas. To be as efficient as possible, you want to block any task that as a general rule you can't barrage or use a cannon for, prioritizing those creatures with the highest weight, as the higher this number is, the more often a Slayer Master will assign you the task. For Duradel, most of the highest weighted tasks are either things that you can barrage, cannon, or a task that you don't have to unlock in the first place, like Mithril Dragons, so you'll never get given them if you don't. Which means you can use most of your blocks on those mid-weighted, really slow tasks such as Steel Dragons, Worms, Drakes, and so on. For smithing, unless you're making enhanced crystal keys and dropping them, as I mentioned in the crafting section, the fastest smithing XP is actually one that very few people ever mention in the game. And whilst there are some very good reasons not to make dragon plate bodies, they currently get you around 700,000 XP per hour, which is significantly higher than gold bars at the blast furnace, with those currently getting you 370,000 XP per hour or 450,000 if you're using a runner. The downside to this method is it's very expensive to make dragon plate bodies because the components cost 2.5 million GP for every plate body, so making just 100 would need an investment of 250 million GP. Plus the parts can take a very long time to buy in the GE, sometimes you're only buying a few per day. That being said, if you are patient, these are actually profitable at the moment and made me money doing it. Once you have 91 thieving, you gain access to the fastest thieving method, which is stealing from the final 2 rooms in the pyramid plunder, although this is the first skill that is probably debatable as to what is actually the best. You see, you could in theory get over 300,000 XP per hour at the new rogues chests, but they are in deep wilderness and it is a PK hotspot. That being said, with protection or done in a 2.2k world, it would be very close as to which is currently the best method. The fastest method for woodcutting is extremely click intense, 1.5 ticking teak trees as it's called on Fossil Island. For this method, I personally like to use resizable, so you can then hold down your Alt key and move your inventory in between the 2 trees. This is just going to reduce the movement to each one and makes life a little bit easier. Then you just need a tick manipulation method again like Swamp Tar. You click on a tree and as soon as you see the XP drop, you use the tar on the guam and then click on the next tree and repeat the process. The difference between this method and the 2-tick method that I will show you shortly is that you can occasionally get 2 logs from a tree here, which is what makes it the most XP. Now there is a way to use all 3 trees so that when one is depleted, you can still carry on doing the method, dropping the logs in between. But honestly, doing that is extremely difficult and unbelievably click intense. For the average player that doesn't want to do that, doing this 2-tick method instead will get you a very similar amount of XP and is so much easier to do. This method is almost identical to the fishing one we did earlier, and again you want runes for a spell that doesn't do any damage such as confuse, and then just an axe and a short bow without any arrows equipped. Then head west from the fairy ring BJP over to the teak trees and cast your spell on the 2 birds in this area. We again want these to take turns attacking us every 2 ticks, so if they aren't set up that way already, step under them to change their attack pattern, move around until one gets stuck, or use a Dragon Spear special attack on one of them. Once they're alternating attacks in sequence like this, stand between these 2 trees with your short bow equipped and auto retaliate on. Then move your screen so both trees are in a line with each other, and again use resizable mode, then hold down the Alt button to move your inventory into this position and make it much easier to drop logs from your inventory. You can also shift and right click on any teak log and change the left click option to drop rather than select, so you don't have to hold down the shift key to drop the logs later. Now that's all set up, all you do is you click on the tree and then you click on the floor next to it, back on the tree and keep repeating it in time with 1 tick between each one. Then when your inventory starts to get full, instead of clicking on the floor, you then click on the log instead to drop it between chopping the tree. This way also means if a tree depletes, it doesn't slow the method down, as the same click in the same spot will instead just chop the tree behind when it happens. The 1.5 tick method is one of the hardest methods that you can learn, but it is slightly more XP once you have it down. But generally you make a lot less mistakes with 2 ticking, so unless you're perfect, it kind of balances itself out. That is everything that you should need to get the best XP rates in old school, although some of them will cost you bank. So this Sunday, I'm going to have a bunch of low requirement moneymakers that are all between 4.5 and 8 million GP per hour.